You didn't consciously decide to check your phone just now. You didn't consciously decide how to walk, how to react to that comment, or which route you took to get here today. Most of what you do, and even what you feel, is being decided somewhere you can't directly see. A layer of your mind running constantly in the background, making decisions before your conscious mind even catches up. This isn't mysticism. It's some of the most well-documented research in modern psychology and neuroscience. Today, we're going to look at exactly what the subconscious mind actually is, what real experiments have found about how much control it has over you, and, most importantly, how to actually work with it instead of being run by it without realizing. Let's start with one of the most cited findings in behavioral psychology. In 2002, psychologist Dr. Wendy Wood and colleagues at Duke University published research analyzing people's daily behavior, asking participants to report their actions throughout the day. The finding: an estimated 43% of daily actions were habits, behaviors performed automatically in the same context, with little to no active conscious decision-making involved. That means nearly half of what you do in an average day isn't a fresh decision at all. It's a pre-programmed response your subconscious is executing based on cues in your environment, the sight of your phone, the smell of coffee, the specific chair you sit in before you start scrolling. Your conscious mind believes it's choosing. Much of the time, it's simply approving a decision the subconscious already made. Here's a second, even more striking body of research. In the 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Li ran experiments measuring brain activity while participants made a simple, freely timed decision, like choosing when to press a button. Using EEG recordings, Libet identified what's called the readiness potential, a measurable buildup of brain activity that occurred before participants reported being consciously aware of deciding to act. In other words, in Libet's data, the brain appeared to initiate the decision-making process before conscious awareness of choosing arrived. This finding has been debated and refined by later researchers, but the core insight has held up across decades of follow-up studies. Conscious awareness often arrives after some of the underlying decision process has already begun, not before it. Finally, there's Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman's dual process framework, detailed in his research and his widely known book, Thinking Fast and Slow. Kahneman describes two systems operating in your mind. System 1, fast, automatic, and largely subconscious, responsible for snap judgments, gut reactions, and pattern recognition. And System 2, slow, effortful, and consciously directed, responsible for deliberate analysis and careful reasoning. Critically, Kahneman's research shows System 1 is active almost constantly, while System 2 is metabolically expensive and easily fatigued, which means your subconscious system isn't an occasional influence. It's your mind's default operating mode, with conscious deliberation functioning more like an occasional override. So if roughly half your actions are automatic habits, your brain often begins deciding before you're consciously aware of choosing, and your default mental mode is fast and subconscious rather than slow and deliberate. What does that actually mean for how you live? And more importantly, what can you actually do with this information? Here's the practical implication of all three findings together. The feeling of being in full conscious control of your day is, to a significant degree, an illusion your mind constructs after the fact. Much of your behavior, how you react to stress, what you reach for when you're bored, how you respond to criticism, is running on subconscious patterns built from repetition, not being freshly decided each time. This explains a common frustration people have with self-improvement, why willpower alone so often fails to change long-standing habits. You can't out-argue a subconscious pattern using conscious effort alone, because the pattern isn't waiting in the conscious part of your mind to be persuaded, it's running automatically, triggered by cues, largely outside conscious negotiation. This is also why environment changes so reliably outperform willpower based strategies. Change the cue, and you interrupt the automatic pattern at its actual source rather than trying to consciously override it every single time it fires. Given that roughly half your behavior runs on autopilot, here are three research supported ways to actually reshape those subconscious patterns rather than fighting them moment to moment. First, change the cue, not just the behavior. Since habits are triggered by specific environmental cues, a location, a time of day, a preceding action, the most reliable way to interrupt an unwanted automatic pattern is to change or remove the cue itself. Wood's research consistently shows that people who change their physical environment when trying to shift a habit succeed far more often than people who rely purely on motivation while keeping the same cues in place. Second, use deliberate repetition to build new automatic patterns on purpose. Because roughly 43% of your day runs on habit already, the goal isn't to eliminate automatic behavior. It's impossible and unnecessary. The goal is to deliberately install better automatic behaviors through consistent repetition in a consistent context, so that helpful patterns become as automatic as unhelpful ones currently are. Third, use your limited conscious System 2 capacity strategically, not constantly. Since deliberate, effortful thinking is limited and fatigues quickly, save it for genuinely important decisions rather than trying to consciously micromanage every small daily choice. Build routines around the low stakes decisions: what you eat for breakfast, when you start work, your default response to a notification, so your System 2 energy is preserved for the moments that actually require careful, conscious judgment. Before we close, one important correction because misinformation about this topic spreads widely online. You may have heard the claim that 95% of decisions are made subconsciously. This figure is repeated constantly across social media and self help content, but it doesn't trace back to any credible, peer reviewed study. It appears to originate from an offhand marketing remark, not controlled research. The real verifiable research, Wood's habit studies, Libet's readiness potential experiments, Kahneman's dual process theory, paints a picture that's plenty compelling without needing an invented statistic. A very large portion of daily behavior is automatic. Decision processes often begin before conscious awareness, and your default cognitive mode leans heavily automatic rather than deliberate. That's the real evidence-based finding. No exaggeration required. Let's bring this together. Your subconscious mind isn't some mystical hidden force. It's a well-documented, heavily researched system responsible for a genuinely large share of your daily behavior. Roughly 43% of what you do each day is habitual, running on autopilot triggered by environmental cues. Decision-making processes, measured directly in brain activity, frequently begin before you're consciously aware of choosing. And your mind's default operating mode is fast, automatic, System 1 processing, not the slower, deliberate System 2 thinking most people assume is running the show. None of this means you are powerless. It means the leverage point was never pure willpower in the moment of temptation. It's the cue, the context, and the repeated pattern surrounding your behavior shaped deliberately in advance. Change your environment to interrupt unwanted automatic patterns. Use consistent repetition to intentionally install better ones.